What's up, everybody? It is Kevin and Sergey from the Tabletop Warlords. Once again, welcome you to the channel for our second episode in the lore series. And this time it is going to be about the ages of Antarean space.
Where last we left off, we were talking about the Antares collapses, which is where all of the gates on the Antares nexus actually shut down, leaving the civilizations that were once connected to them stranded in real space.
Now, the time period in which these gates remain inaccessible it varies widely. It can be hundreds of years, it can be thousands of years. And the only reason why we know this is because there have been several collapses. And these collapses are what Antares space uses, or the factions therein, to annotate the ages of Antarean space. The first of these Antarean ages is the age of the Prime Imperia. This first age didn't begin with, humans finding their gate, but it is the age in which humans first find the gate from Earth to the Antarean nexus. And it basically, when they've figured out their key to their home gate, like we said in the last video, it's very easy to figure out the keys to other gates. So you see this gigantic, rush to explore as much Antarean gates as they can find. And this time period is referred to as the Spill. So basically it's like the Wild West, and this is the gold rush, and every human is trying to go to every planet.
It's so North America's manifest destiny period, where the humans are spreading across the galaxy as fast as humanly possible.
Yes. Now, keep in mind, the way that Antarean travel works is that means that they are basically exiting the Terran gate and are colonizing and exploring the gates closest to them in Antarean space. But once again, that does not mean that each gate leads to anywhere close to them in real space. So the empires that are formed are quite widespread. And basically in this age, they interact with a lot of builder technology, which they start to, try to figure out and incorporate into human technology. They actually meet alien species, so we figure out real quick that there's definitely other races other than humans. It doesn't really say in the lore specifically what races they interact with, but I imagine it is multiple. And basically this age, begins with that to the humans' perspective, but ends with the first collapse, which is right after this giant war between human factions. So basically the humans start to destroy each other, the gates collapse, and it actually results in Earth being destroyed and all of the inner planets being blown up to asteroid fields. So not a great
not a great start for the humans.
Not a great. It's we're like, wow, we found this really cool thing, and we immediately
it's
ruin
not
it.
It's not like the gate collapse that destroys the human planets. It's the war that destroys the human planets. So
just
we once as humans are wont to do, we blew ourselves up. Now, once these gates closed, it isolated all of the disparate human civilizations that had been dotted across Antares. Remember, once the Antares nexus shuts down, all of these different civilizations are not anywhere near each other in real space, so they lose all of the resources that they had been trading back and forth. This means that a lot of them just kind of descend into barbarism over the couple thousand years that the gates are closed. There is a couple of outliers, most notably Isor, which is what eventually became the Isorians, because the real space place that they're in is actually very rich in resources and allows them to kind of flourish as an independent community, regardless of being connected to the Nexus.
Now, it's probably important at this time to note, because we haven't said anything about it yet, humans at this point in history, and throughout all the ages, if I'm not mistaken, haven't figured out how to do faster than light travel. So that's why this isolation thing is so bad. Because like Sergey said, it's impossible to
you're
email a sandwich
completely cut
when
off.
It's 60 light years away. You're never Well, it's more than that though. More often it's more. Than that. But just something to point out.
Now, the Isorians were not the only ones that survived this period. There was actually also the Alzantha, the K10, and the Zaun, which were all human civilizations that will later become very important in the history of Antares.
The second age of Antarean space is the re-natal age, and basically with this age, the gates slowly begin to reappear, raising back up into the photosphere. And the first thing that human civilizations that are exiting into the Nexus once again discover is that their location on the surface of Antares is completely not the same. So basically, if you can imagine, in the first age, the human empires and all the spill that happened is in a localized area that could be pretty close to its to all tight knit together. But now those gates have been spread all across the surface, kind of randomly. Yeah. And there's something to note is with the gates locations, even the distance between gates is actually quite large, and the gates actually concentrate in number closest to what they call the tropics of Oberon. I love it. And that's where the small green star orbits around Antares. So it's the same structure, but all the gates are in different locations.
Because these human societies were separated by several generations, a couple hundred years, they had really become their own societies. It even took some of them several hundred years to discover that there were other humans in the Nexus, which is a pretty big deal culturally. One could, if they were involved in a collapse, legitimately think that they were the only humans left in the entire universe. But once this reconnection happens, it kind of sparks a technological renaissance throughout the Second Age, in which a lot of builder technology was kind of dissected and figured out for use throughout human society. This is where we find transporters, probably most notably, which is
transmat.
Transmats. Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
it's a transporter.
I'm mixing sci-fis here, but yeah, transmats, which is a really important technology all the way through the Seventh Age. Now, probably the most important technological discovery throughout this period actually happened during the collapsing of this age. And that is that human beings were able to track the age in a scientific manner. It wasn't this mystical, horrible thing that nobody understood. They were actually able to discover that it's rather systematic and that it starts in the poles of the Antarean Nexus and kind of works its way around to the center. And this is important because it kind of gives humans some agency over knowing when a collapse will occur in the future.
Like Sergey said, the different human civilizations were able to kind of observe this collapse happening, and that awarded them the ability to kind of prepare for it. So in this age, you see a lot of the outlying colonies or less established human worlds just being deliberately abandoned, and they concentrate the population on more stable worlds, because at this point they have like no idea if the gates collapsing and reopening is something that always happens, or if literally the Nexus is never going to be seen again and they're going to be isolated forever. But that saw the end of the Second Age, and the time of collapse this time was only a few hundred years,
which is very short in Antarean terms.
Now there should be an asterisk next to that wait time, because in the Third Age, the Lost Ages, it's really weird. The gates in the Third Age actually don't 100% regenerate, meaning that like some of the worlds that have experienced the second collapse, their gates were never regenerated, so they don't even participate in the Third Age.
Yes.
And that's why they kind of call it the Lost Age, is because a lot of people didn't participate at all in it. But it is still an important age. That is where, the human civilizations that do reappear are able to connect. More advanced versions of the technology that they've been working on since the Second Age are able to be exchanged. And so there's a lot of things happening. But the worst thing is the coming of the pale horse of destruction.
This is the age in which humanity is introduced to the Vorl. And humanity had spoken with and parlayed with and at points warred with several different alien races, but they were all at least, similar to humans enough that like there was reason there. The Vorl don't have that as much. They're a very non-human race. There's no official images of them yet, but they've been described as multiple entities that all kind of combine together to create like a one-bodied creature, which is really, really interesting and super, super alien. But the Vorl proved to be just voracious killers. They didn't care about exchanging technology. They just pretty much slaughtered anyone that got in their path, which meant this was not the most peaceful time for humanity in the Nexus.
So after meeting the Voral, the rest of the Third Age is basically dominated by wars with the Voral, in which the Voral just travel from world to world, destroying any human empire, habitation, colony, whatever that they can find. And it is really only stopped, the wars, when there is the next collapse, which this time around is incredibly abrupt. They basically detect the collapse happening, and within 5 years, every gate is back within the Nexus. So it starts the next age of collapse. This brings us to my favorite age of Antarean space, Zaun times!
Zaun times! Leave it. It'll look ridiculous. No, it's fine. It's fine. Once again, the Nexus sporadically comes back to life, with the gates being scrambled again, just like they were in the previous age. The notable thing about this age is that it is the rise of the first Antarean Empire, the Zaun Empire.
Zaun Empire!
Zaun!
I'm sorry.
We're
I love
ridiculous. It's great. But this empire was led by kind of like the rise of the Nuhu, which, if you're not super familiar with Antares, which you probably are if you're watching these videos, let's be honest, but they're kind of like an elegant humanoid race that is very interconnected with technology to like an extreme point, more so than a normal human could be. And this empire rises up as a very rigid empire, is very ritualistic, and it's very much like based in a caste system.
Gives me Dune vibes, like they're Mentats almost.
So to me, it gives me more of like kind of like a Stargate vibe, because it says in the text that they raise themselves up as kind of like gods. So I kind of see them
Fair
like
point. Okay.
walking around with their like Anubis heads and their cool laser staffs. Exactly. And this empire, for quite a while, dominates the entirety of Antarean space. And by quite a while, I mean several thousand years. So multiple generations go by under the Zaun Empire.
Everything in the Zaun Empire was going great until it wasn't. So, like many empires across human history, at some point in Zaun history, the entire empire is fractured into two factions. It's basically two different groups saying, I have claim to this Zaun throne, and it doesn't go well. There's a civil war, basically, and that results in each side fracturing into even more factions, because now there's like so many other different people that are like, I'm the emperor. No, I'm the emperor. And then the Voral show up, which apparently they love to do at those inopportune moments.
It's always a bad time when the Voral show up. Like the party
like,
is over as soon as the
what's that on
Voral
the
show up.
horizon?
They don't bring beer to the party. They're generally rude to other guests.
Their potato salad has obviously gone bad. But no, so they just show up, and so the human civilization, which was this huge Antarean empire, is absolutely not ready, and the Voral actually destroy so many human worlds and cut such a path of destruction that they actually end up getting to Zaun itself and totally destroying it, basically ending the Zaun Empire.
The collapse of the Antarean Nexus this time is a little bit stranger than the rest of them, even in that Obereg, which we talked about last time as kind of like the custodian star of the Nexus, kind of lost its marbles. It started doing weird stuff and then eventually kind of faded away. And as it faded away, so did the photosphere around the Nexus, and all of the gates just kind of went dark. Yeah. This behavior of the Nexus definitely kind of gives some credence to the fact that Antares might be a sentient thing that has thoughts. It tends to collapse in times of great strife, such as this war and the human war. And this is just a fan theory. This is not canon.
Yes.
This is just me and Kevin kind of conjecturing that Antares has been said to be sentient, and we don't really know what it reacts to, but it tends to react to times of great upheaval. And speaking of upheaval, the Fifth Age.
The Fifth Age. The Warring Ages. Like in all of the Antarean ages, this age begins with the gates once again reappearing in very random faction, just peppered randomly over the Antarean surface once again. Now, it's called the warring age because there's a lot of wars between a lot of different empires, and it's because at this point, if you can imagine, the Antarean worlds that have survived with technology, because that's only a few worlds. Once again, just like in all the other ages, many human worlds do not survive the collapses. So the ones that are technologically advanced and survive basically can kind of explore Antarean space pretty easily at this point. So many empires are formed very quickly, and it basically results in a lot of friction between different territories, and it's nuts. The Vor will appear again. Everybody's fighting everybody. There's war everywhere.
Another really interesting aspect of this age is that those thousands of years of separation and isolation has actually led way to cultures that were once human interacting with other human cultures, but they don't even physically resemble each other anymore because they've evolved past the human appearance.
I mean, it makes sense. There's literally at this point in the timeline, there are like thousands of years of separate, evolution going on different human colonies. So it's like there's a lot of divergent happening. So I'm assuming this is where they met the bird people of Algaron 5.
This is actually one of the only periods in which technology does not progress forward. In fact, it slides back a little bit as the wars don't really allow for the trade of information. A lot of empires are formed and a lot of empires fall. There's actually an empire called the Ascendancy, which is a federation of thousands upon thousands of human worlds that kind of keep one area of the Nexus clear of fighting. And the Isaurians are also present once again. However, they refer to this era as the Dark Ages and kind of bolster up and hide behind their defenses and let the age pass them by, not really getting involved in any of the major conflicts.
Viewers of our channel might think that this is Sergey and I's favorite age because this is the age where we talk about the most, because our battles always take place near Fifth Age ruins and whatnot.
That's true. That's true.
Which is
our ruins should be way more pockmarked with like giant laser burns. And they are. That's true. They have like. Well, I always felt bad because I thought like my ruins were very grim dark. But it makes sense. It's the age of warfare in which, everything was destroyed. But that's just a little point. But now, this age of, like, absolute crazy warfare is once again only stopped because there is yet again another collapse. And this collapse is actually the least documented because it says it happened so sudden, so I can only assume that it's shorter than the period of years from the other collapse. So it's like it must have been just like real fast. But either way, the gates once again retract into Antares and cut off all of the different human, moral, whatever worlds from the Nexus. This begins the Sixth Age, the tri-sapient age. That's my favorite name, by the way. Favorite name of age is the tri-sapient. It's cool.
Now, before we get into the beginning of this age, it's important to talk about the end of the last just one more time. So, from the Isaurian perspective, the collapse, it was different because I feel like someone broke Antares, because it talks about how they detect basically their gate, which is shut down, starts leaking null space. So it's basically like this like antimatter shadow seeps out of their gate and eventually like enters their sun. And so you can only they basically assume that this has happened everywhere, and it is like quite traumatic because while the Isaurians are like the best at understanding like the interdimensional technologies of Antares, but they probably learn quite a bit from this event, is my assumption. But it really wreaks havoc on everything. Like all the Nuhu on the planet are basically just like, it's like the nanospore is completely like they're just like throwing up everywhere.
Well,
in the
they
streets,
like float around too. So if their nanospores are messed up, they probably was like getting coffee one day and just like to the ground.
Exactly. And so it talks about how like they're almost completely wiped out, and so it's really weird. But there's something going on with Antares, and basically when the age opens, it is once again like not all the gates reopen. Like it's actually really loose, and the most intense part is that like 90% of all advanced civilization from all the other previous ages has been completely wiped out.
Mm.
And like some of the planets only have like savages, which I can only imagine is like a Conan world. It could be, but yeah, so it's a really intense age right from the get-go.
Okay, can I insert a fan theory here?
Yeah, go for it.
It's definitely not canon. I think Antares was trying to cleanse all human life from its nexus.
Absolutely.
I think it was absolutely playing custodian and being like, all right, these damn plankton that are all over me are getting a little too spicy, and I'm gonna just...
Well, I mean, at this point, there has been several collapses. Like, it's like, the Antarean Nexus, a beautiful thing that can transport people to across the world, and we just end up killing each other over and over again.
Yeah.
And in those giant conflicts, the gates just collapse. And so, yeah, I mean, like you said, fan theory, but it kind of makes sense that it's like, Antares, because at this point, it's like not, I don't know if it's broken or whatever, but it's definitely leaking null space.
Something weird is going on.
Good.
Yeah.
so yeah, like I think you might be right. I think that it's trying to basically eliminate the people capable of hurting it.
Like Kevin said, not many human civilizations lasted past this weird Antares anomaly. However, the few that did were rather notable. The first is the people of the planet Isor, the Isorian Cenatax. Then there was the people of Alzantha, which eventually spread out and became the Human League. And then there were the people of New Zaun, which became the New Zaun Empire. These three factions are why the age is called the tri-sapient age, because these three human factions pretty much dominated Antarean space. And they didn't have like all-out war. It's actually kind of like almost like modern times. Sometimes they're fighting, sometimes they're trading technology. Overall, they were moving forward separately, but kind of together. The tri-sapient civilizations up until this point had pretty much been the only major powers in Antarean space. However, then the Voral show up, and they immediately begin doing what they did in every age hitherto, which is go to genocidal rampage, attacking human civilizations and pretty much killing anyone they can get their hands on.
They're jerks.
The tri-sapient factions at this point have had absolutely enough of the Voral, and they actually ally together to use a new technology to do something that is completely unprecedented in Antares history. They fly through the Antares Nexus into the real space of Voral society and use Isorian transdimensional technology to destroy the gate, which cuts the Voral off from access to the Antares Nexus.
What the Isorians are able to accomplish really pisses off Antares, because it immediately triggers a cascading collapse, which is the collapse leading into the 7th age, the age in which the game takes place, the age that we are currently in, and it is known as the age of the panhuman concord. It is important to note that the collapse leading up into the 7th age, the tri-sapient catastrophe, is a period of 3,000 years. And the important thing to know about that period is Isor, the Isorians, continue developing their technology in a big way. They're making a lot of advances, and they actually make a lot of advances in near light travel, because like I said before, there's no warp drive in Gates of Antares. And so using these faster drives, they're able to decrease real space travel by quite a bit, and they actually go out and colonize several planets in real space. We're talking like 25 light years away. And so to kind of help in the communication between these incredible long distances, they develop their nanospore technology and create what they call, and this is probably the most important development in Antarean space, the Integrated Machine Intelligence, or IMTEL. And this is the AI program that basically envelops all of Isorian society and kind of controls every aspect of it, and allows for like insane instantaneous communication, crazy computation, and all these advancements in society. And when they reconnect to the Antarean Nexus at the beginning of the 7th age, this nanospore kind of like ambient cloud of AI kind of, is distributed across the Nexus. And when it interacts with other human civilizations, it actually basically integrates itself into their tech. And so it's kind of this like really, sometimes passive, I would imagine, way of just like absorbing humans into the collective, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a little Borgy. It's a
It's a
little
little
Borgy.
Borgy, a little bit, a lot of it.
It's like nice Borgy though. I don't know.
And this Borgy society that they've developed is known as dun, 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 the
Panhuman Concord.
That was not in unison at all. But and that's one of the playable factions, so that's where you get the Concord. And the name of the age.
Up until this point, everything's been going kind of great for the people of Isor and their Panhuman Concord.
Feeling good about themselves.
They're feeling pretty good, as they should. But then they run into something that has not happened to the Isorians yet. They discover an alien species in real space.
They are as if the madman's conception of a spider.
That's right. The race that they run into is sort of like a monstrous humanoid spider race. They have 8 legs, they're much larger than a human, but they're also extremely technologically advanced enough to fight the Isorians, like, to the bitter end.
I must interject again and say, we will absolutely be making another episode that centers around this Zaun Kiri war, because it is like some of the coolest bits of the fiction.
Yeah, there's a whole supplement about it, which you should absolutely check out, by the way. The Splintering Shard. # buy the Splintering Shard.
I think it's free.
I think it's free. Never mind. # just get the Splintering Shard. Now, the most important aspect of this conflict, which we're going to kind of gloss over quickly here because, like Kevin said, we're going to talk about this length elsewhere, is that the Imtel of the Isorians gets corrupted by alien technology and forms an alien-human hybrid Imtel. The most important aspect of this event is that corrupted Imtel is no longer compatible with the rest of the Panhuman Concord.
That's right. Overnight, the Isorians all switch to Max, and it's not good. The event that results from that is because, I guess, like, the greater Imtel doesn't really see it coming. Like, the new infected AI Imtel, or alien Imtel, rather, seeps out into the greater Antarean space and basically just causes a schism where, like, half of the Panhuman Concord worlds all of a sudden convert to this new, substantially gooier Imtel, and the rest of them stay with the normal one. And even though there's like not really anything like bad blood or like some kind of rivalry, the two factions just become opposed. It's like oil and water.
They're just not compatible.
They just cannot work together. And so it starts basically this gigantic conflict in which the two Imtel societies are, vying for dominance. The biggest thing is that this 7th age, by the time the Isorians have appeared, the Concord has appeared, the Concord has schismed, there are thousands of worlds. It is not like the other previous ages where there's only a few gates that have appeared. There is the Nexus is bristling with gates. And even though there's still many gates that are thought to, they're going to emerge eventually, there are thousands of unexplored worlds, there are unexplored civilizations, there's new aliens to meet. It's crazy how much diversity is in the Antarean Nexus, and that is where the game takes place and opens up and gives the players this like awesome kind of blank palette to be able to work with, which is really cool.
This concludes our discussion of the ages of Antares, but I just want to say I love this lore so much because I would read a book in any of those ages. They're all so cool. They're all unique. Like, I don't know. There's just so much room for awesome content to be made within the universe of Antares.
If you have any questions about anything or just want to talk about cool stuff, let us know in the comments. Anything that we didn't answer, if you have any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer them. And if you want to, fully commit to the battle with the algorithm that we fight every day.
The Imtel that we battle.
Yes, the Imtel that we fight that looks like YouTube. Like the video if you like this video. Comment below like we just said. Subscribe to the channel if you're watching and haven't yet. We would love to have you. And, ring the bell so you get notifications because we're going to be putting out these videos as fast as we can.
If you want to support the channel even further, we do have a Patreon campaign, which we would absolutely love to have you be a part of. It's the lifeblood of our channel, and you get access to Patreon exclusive videos. They're kind of in a format like this, where we go behind the scenes of the channel and tell you about all the cool stuff that we're working on.
As always, thank you so much, and we will see you
on the tabletop.
It's not gonna sync up. We can't do it.
I hope it does. Maybe it will. Maybe we're just that in sync.